Hello, my friends. I'm Professor Arão Alves, and we begin today's video discussing an unprecedented escalation in the Ukraine conflict. What we witnessed today was one of the most intense chapters in the recent war between Ukraine and Russia. On the eve of meetings in Istanbul, both sides engaged in what intelligence sources describe as one of the largest drone battles to date. Moreover, an attack destroyed a railway bridge in Russian territory, specifically in the Bryansk region, which borders Ukraine just as a passenger train carrying nearly 400 people was en route to Moscow. At least 7 people were killed and dozens injured. So far, no one has claimed responsibility for the attack. Additionally, a Ukrainian strike hit significant Russian military targets deep within Siberia, nearly 500 kilometers from the front lines. Before we continue, please like this video to support the channel and comment on this escalation of conflicts ahead of negotiations. This helps with engagement and ensures YouTube delivers this video to more people. It costs nothing and helps a lot. Let's proceed. For the first time since the conflict began, Ukraine managed to hit Russian nuclear-capable bombers deep within Siberia, over 300 kilometers from the front lines. According to a Ukrainian intelligence official, more than 40 Russian military aircraft were hit. Unverified images circulating on social media show strategic bombers ablaze at the Belaya Airbase, north of Irkutsk. The Guardian published a video purportedly from one of these drone attacks. Irkutsk governor Igor Kobzev confirmed a drone attack near the village of Sredny in the Usolsky district. He stated that the drones were launched from a truck but avoided mentioning any connection to strategic aviation. According to him, this was the first time such an action occurred in that part of Siberia, and there are still doubts about the number of drones involved. The Belaya Airbase, also known as Sredny, houses Tupolev Tu-22M bombers long-range supersonic models. And it wasn't just there. Local authorities reported another drone attack in the Murmansk region, northern Russia, where the Belaya Airbase is located, also used for strategic operations. Meanwhile, overnight, the Ukrainian Air Force reported that Russia launched an impressive 472 drones against Ukrainian territory, the highest number recorded in a single night so far, along with 7 missiles. This volume clearly shows that the war not only continues, but is being fought with increasing intensity. The Russians also commented on their attacks against Ukraine. According to Russia's Ministry of Defense, units of the so-called Northern Tactical Group managed to take control of the locality of Alexievka, also in the Sumy region. Additionally, the same source claims that 7 JDAM glide bombs, those supplied by the United States, were shot down, along with about 100 Ukrainian drones during the same period. Furthermore, Russia stated that it launched an Iskander-M missile against a Ukrainian airfield in Chuhuiv in the Kharkiv region. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, the target was a long-range drone launch base. They claim the attack destroyed 6 drone launchers, 8 vehicles, and approximately 30 kamikaze drones that were ready to be launched. There was another Iskander-M attack, this time directed against Ukrainian mobile targets near the city of Krolevets, still in the Sumy region. The Russian Ministry of Defense stated that 2 vehicles containing mobile drone control and launch stations were hit. Moreover, surveillance images reportedly recorded a payload explosion in several drones ready for takeoff, which allegedly caused a fire at the site. As I said yesterday, they talk about peace, but as Jeremiah wrote, in their hearts, they plot traps. Well, Zelensky confirmed that Defense Minister Rustem Umerov will represent Ukraine in talks with the Russians in Istanbul. According to sources linked to Trump, who continues to try to position himself as a mediator, both sides are expected to present their peace proposals during this meeting in Turkey. But even with this gesture, everything indicates that Moscow and Kyiv remain far apart regarding what they consider acceptable. We already know Moscow's demands, which include, among other things, the demilitarization of Ukraine and the formal commitment not to join NATO, not to mention the recognition of the 4 territories occupied by Moscow, even those partially occupied. And Ukraine, does it have any position or its own proposals? What is known, according to a copy of the Ukrainian documents seen by the press, is that Kyiv's proposal includes some central points. Kyiv is demanding the unconditional return of Ukrainian children who were deported, the release of all prisoners of war under an all-for-all scheme, and also the release of detained civilians. Then there's the issue of security guarantees. Here, Ukraine wants active participation from the international community, especially the United States and Europe, not only to mediate but to closely monitor compliance with any agreements reached. In terms of sovereignty, what's stated is that Ukraine maintains the right to seek entry into both the European Union and NATO. Furthermore, there would be no limitations on the size of the country's armed forces, nor restrictions on the presence of allied foreign troops on Ukrainian territory. Regarding territory, Kyiv does not recognize Russia's territorial gains since 2014. It makes clear that any negotiation on this matter can only happen after a total ceasefire. The current line of control would only be a starting point, not the final map. In terms of sanctions, the proposal includes a gradual withdrawal, with an automatic reactivation mechanism should Russia violate the terms of the agreement. Additionally, frozen Russian assets would only be released upon some form of reparation. Finally, in terms of implementation, the proposal includes a clear roadmap with defined deadlines, international verification, and the application of penalties in case of non-compliance. Now, let's talk about reality. The Ukrainian proposal is ambitious. It imposes heavy demands, especially regarding territorial return and national sovereignty. In other words, the distance between Kyiv and Moscow's positions is very large. The big question remains, will there be real room for negotiation in Istanbul? Or will we witness another round of diplomatic wear and tear? Well, China has again made statements about the remarks of US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Beijing said he made slanderous accusations, vilifying China and promoting a bloc confrontation logic, that old Cold War mentality. According to the ministry, Hegseth deliberately ignored the calls for peace and development made by countries in the region and instead propagated false accusations against China, calling the country a threat. This all followed his speech on Saturday at the forum in Singapore. Now, China's response wasn't just diplomatic. The Ministry of Defense also commented, saying that the US is accustomed to using such forums to sow disputes, provoke discord, and pursue selfish interests. According to spokesperson Zhang Xiaogang, China's armed forces will work with countries in the region to oppose hegemonism, which in his words harms the Indo-Pacific. And the backdrop to all this is clear. The increased US military presence in the region. In his speech, Hegseth made a direct appeal to Indo-Pacific allies, especially Australia, to increase their defense investments, warning that China's threat is real and potentially imminent. In response, Australian Prime Minister Albanese stated that his government has already allocated an additional $10 billion Australian dollars for defense. But he also sent a message showing some discomfort with Hegseth's remarks. He told journalists today that it would be Australia determining its own defense policy. The Chinese government directly accuses the United States of turning the region into a powder keg. Remember that this year, as part of the defense partnership with the Philippines, the US installed Typhoon missile launch systems on Luzon Island missiles capable of hitting targets in both China and Russia. Beijing and Manila dispute sovereignty over islands and atolls in the South China Sea. And as we've seen in recent months, incidents between the two countries' coast guards have increased. The Chinese delegation at Shangri-La again blamed external intervention as the main risk to stability in this area. Colonel Jiang Qi from the National Defense University of the People's Liberation Army told the Global Times that some foreign powers have been sending planes and warships to the South China Sea under the pretext of freedom of navigation, accusing these actions of violating China's territorial sovereignty and maritime rights. Meanwhile, the US, Japan, Australia, and the Philippines continue conducting joint maritime operations in the region, a clear message that they will not leave Asia's most disputed sea under Beijing's exclusive control. The Taiwan issue also resurfaced. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs warned the US not
da
to
China
play
sob
with
pretexto
fire
da
on this
liberdade
topic.
de navegação
Meanwhile,
e acusou essas
Hegseth,
ações de
in his
violarem a
speech, made it
soberania
clear that
territorial
any
e os
attempt to
direitos
invade the
marítimos da
island would
China.
have devastating
Enquanto isso, agentes
consequences
dos
for the
Estados Unidos,
region and the
Japão,
world.
Austrália e
That's all
Filipinas
for
continuam
now.
realizando
A big
operações
hug from
marítimas
Professor
conjuntas na
Arão
região,
Alves.
Uma espécie